Hi all, I'm with a very famous commentator you may have heard of before, and Grandmaster Daniel King is with us today. Hi Daniel.
Nice to be here. Let's go.
By the way, Daniel, you were born on the same day as me, August 28th. We're both the same Virgo sign.
Oh, you take star signs seriously?
It's good for commentating, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you're born on the 28th of August,
it's a great commentator.
You have to be you're a born commentator. And a born chess player too, I'd like to say. Okay, listen, I've got some Najdorf games to look at. The Najdorf is my favourite variation of the Sicilian defence. It's a fantastic counter-attacking opening, and I've had such pleasure playing it over the years, so I thought I'd bring along a few games to show you.
Cool. Should we take it from the black side, do you reckon? That's more fun, or we're going to take it from
no, listen, let's keep it traditional. We'll keep the white at the bottom of the screen. So okay, let's zip out the first few moves. So this was a game I played in the British Championship a few years ago against a chap called Adam Collinson, who's...
Yes, I know him. Star from the North. Yes, my friend John Naylor was raving about Adam Collinson. Yes.
Well, he's not that good. Yeah. But okay, he's a decent player. Right, so this is quite a positional variation of the Najdorf, of course, playing the knight back to f3. And, I've got my classic Najdorf pawn structure, where black has this majority of pawns in the centre. But there's, potentially a weak square on d5, so the battle often revolves around this d5 square. And the queen side as well. Okay, so let's see how things develop. So basically I played queen c7 to stop the bishop coming out to c4, which would of course claim this very, very important diagonal. Okay, so moving on, a4 was played. Now bishop e7, a5 to capture some squares. Okay, this is all pretty well known stuff, very typical. Let me try and get to the critical moment in the game. Okay, typical manoeuvre, bringing the knight round to the queen side.
Maybe to b6 at some point.
Absolutely. If white can cement control over the b6 square, obviously, that's pretty good. So, obviously, I played b5 to try and break things open. And now, again, the battle is raging for the d5 and the c4 squares. He castled, I played bishop b7, took on b6, and knight c4. Now it looks as though he's getting reasonable control here over d5, and sometimes he can even get the knight into f5 as well, so you have to be pretty careful around here.
Is this a cunning pawn sack here? Knight takes e4. Something horrible happens? Knight d5 maybe?
Yeah, knight d5 I think is a bit of a problem. It's been so long ago since I looked at this game, but let's have a look. Knight takes... knight takes queen. What's the score? No, this is okay for black, isn't it? We better go back. Yes, why didn't I take that? Maybe simply this move, actually. That could well be it. Followed by playing the bishop to f3,
yeah.
And I think that is a big problem actually.
Right.
Once bishop f3 comes, and there are tricks on this long diagonal. So, for example, queen here. I suspect bishop f3 is a strong move, and there are very nasty tricks here.
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of that, I played rook b8. So basically, I'm looking for counterplay down the b file and down the c file as well.
Yeah.
So queen d3 happened to protect the pawn. Rook here. Rook d1. Bishop f8. Okay, it's good to tuck the bishop out of the way, of course. Rook a2, a5. I've got to gain some space, and I don't want this to become a target on a6. Bishop a6 and b3. Now this was the critical moment in the game. The question is, what did I come up with here? Now this is a very tense position, because if white can cement his control over c4 and maybe d5 and start to build up pressure
could look quite
on this a pawn, then you can see that, you know, white has a certain amount of control in this position. But I managed to come up with something which I'm quite proud of, actually.
Yeah, so this is the moment, sort of, there could be a Karpovian type grip. Your counterplay is at stake here, and your structural weaknesses are being emphasised. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, very exciting. Yes.
Okay. Shall I reveal all? Basically, I set there was a little tactical trap here. Basically, I took on c4, which looks very, very anti-positional, because after this, well, if I were to exchange queens, then this, of course, is exactly what white wants, you know, with this light square control here, and then you just have such a grip, and everything's going white's way.
Yeah.
So it looks very anti-positional to give up that light squared bishop. But I played here. And obviously queen is attacked, so the queen had to come back. And this is where everything fell into place.
Yes, I think I can see some pain coming white's way.
There is some pain coming white's
actually,
way.
if this is a brilliant move now, which I expect, I suspect rather, should we give our YouTube videos 10 seconds to try and work it out, or pause the video?
Okay, well, let's chat amongst ourselves. Basically, I have a tactic in this position. This is usually what saves black in the Najdorf. You know, often positionally things can be a little bit dubious, but if you've got a tactic that can swing things your way. So, okay, have we given enough time for you to find black's tactic in this position? Okay, shall we reveal all?
Yep.
Okay, I played rook takes knight. So white took, and now here's the killer move.
Oh no!
Yes! Queen takes f2!
Yes, classic! Oh, that is so unfortunate. I was looking at knight e4, to be honest.
Knight e4's not as good.
Yeah,
if I just go back. Knight e4.
Tactical disaster.
Okay, so it hits these two, but then the queen
e1 or queen f3, yeah.
Queen f3 or queen e1, and basically white is okay.
Yeah.
But queen f2,
oh dear,
it's easy to overlook a move like that.
Unbelievable.
And the point is this, that after knight takes pawn, king came up to e3, knight takes queen. Now, I'm still the exchange down, but the knight is forking two rooks. It's just everything fits so perfectly.
Yes.
Now, at the end of all this, you'd think that for a sacrifice as brilliant as that, you'd have a winning position, but actually, the only thing I've done is win a pawn, and even now, it's not that clear. I'm a pawn up, but you know, there are certain technical difficulties. In fact, black is a lot better in this position, because it's a classic Najdorf. This very often happens, actually, that you often get a favourable endgame where you use your central pawn majority and kingside pawn majority just to power down. Now, of course, white has some chances on the queen side with this pass b pawn, but there is no doubt that black is better here. Basically, you have to keep your eye on the prize, and you have to keep advancing your pawns on the king side. So that's what happened. King f7. So I need my king to back the pawns. And although this bishop looks absolutely rubbish at the moment, in fact that can come into the game as well. So here's the game continuation here. Okay, white still looks very active, but I can block that out. And now it's time to push those pawns. You just got to forget the queen side. Just keep advancing the pawns on the king side, and something is going to turn up. You just got to be brutal about this. So just keep advancing. And now you'll notice what I've done is, okay, I've put all these pawns on light squares and ready for the dark squared bishop to enter the game.
That's a very instructive point, which I don't usually make. Actually, it's usually when I see Carlsen games, he puts his pawns on opposite to the opponent's bishop, but here you're putting your pawns on opposite of your own.
It all depends on the position, but here it fits. And now it's time for the bishop to enter the game. Bishop d8. Again, this is a very, very common manoeuvre in the Najdorf, that the bishop bounces out to this absolute killer diagonal. Now, often in the middle game, it's hitting f2 and hitting a king on g1, but it's still a fantastic diagonal here. So bishop d8 came. Rook h7, and now I don't need to bother with that pawn. The king comes into the middle. Well, okay, I kept pushing. Bishop b6 check, there you go. Once that bishop emerges, then this is just fantastic. And now the rook activates, I'm ready to come down here, come down to a3 or a1. And also my king finds a beautiful square on f4. You see, it's all on the opposite colour to white's bishop. I think that's important. Rook a1. Now the rook cruises in. Okay, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across with a rook and just take some pawns.
Yeah.
So here we go. I'm just cleaning up now.
Yeah. But his earlier philosophy it's almost like he was aiming for some sort of strategic, almost crush if he got that position with the bind. So that was absolutely the right point to find that combination. Otherwise, you could have been strategically worse without much counterplay.
Absolutely. No, I was in trouble if that tactic hadn't worked. But okay, I'd kind of foreseen that this was coming. He actually resigned in this position. Well, I've given up pawns on the king side, but crucially, I still have my central pawn majority. Here he resigned because, well, let's have a little look what might happen. Check. Let's say the king comes back, and now I can just start pushing.
Yes, it's just completely crushing now.
It's always, this happens so often in the Najdorf, that you use your central pawn majority and kingside pawn majority to advance, sometimes in the endgame, but sometimes in the middle game as well, and this often is decisive. I've had so many games where I've won in the endgame. People often imagine that Najdorf, fierce attacks in the middle game, but actually the endgame is often where your strength lies. So, well, I just like that combination. That's one of my favourite combinations.
Stunner. Queen takes f2. So really turn the tables there.
Okay. Do you want to look at another?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, here we go. This one, in some ways, there are similarities. I don't know. I can maybe go back to this position and branch off. Now, this is against Philip Morris. This plays at the Lloyds Bank Open, big open tournament in London that used to be held.
I used to love that. Yeah,
great tournament. And in fact, this is exactly the same variation. And I repeated this with Queen c7. He also played a4, Bishop e7. Now this time he played Bishop e2, and I have to say that this one did not go as well. I was definitely worse out of the opening here. I'm not exactly sure where I made my mistake. It's been so long ago since I looked at this, but he didn't play his pawn to a5, but instead went straight for this manoeuvre of the bishop onto this diagonal.
Yes.
And just trying to control these squares. And I think this is certainly not a bad plan at all. I didn't find the right way. Okay, h6 to prevent the bishop coming to g5. I'll get to the critical moment, because these are fairly typical moves.
Can I just ask though?
Yeah, of course.
Kasparov used to play the Sicilian Najdorf with a6, but he used to play a lot of Scheveningen structure with d6. Did you ever play the Scheveningen structure as well? Because e5 seems to me a strategic risk with the d5 square in a lot of games.
That's very true, and I think we can see that in this game, that d5 is potential weakness. So you're basically talking about this structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have also played this structure. It's just a question of taste. When you play e5, there are pros and cons. Obviously, you're giving away some control over f5 and d5. But the advantage of this is that you stake a claim in the centre, and you do win more control over these squares. So you give something, you take something. Yeah. It's a question of taste. I don't think one is better than the other. Okay, listen, let's crack on with this game because I want to get to the critical position. Okay, I played g6. Now, maybe my manoeuvres here are too slow. It's possible that I needed to do something more active. One particular plan might be knight c5, with the idea of putting the knight on e6, and then sometimes, you have the possibility later on to play like this. But I think my manoeuvres with g6 were probably too slow. Okay, it all looks very pretty, but actually it's not clear what my bishop is doing on g7. So, okay, I came around to this. And this is interesting. Instead of allowing the knight into e6, my opponent simply took this. And he wants to do, as my opponent did in the last game, perhaps manoeuvre this knight around here. But of course, I have greater control over the dark squares now. So, it's double-edged. But I think around here, my opponent is basically starting to get control. I think this manoeuvre with g6 and bishop g7, although quite pretty, was just too slow. It didn't really have any bearing over the position. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do like white's position now.
Yeah.
But okay, it was fight back time. So clearly this bishop isn't doing much. It's hitting this pawn on e5. So I played h5. Now that's a little ray of light for the bishop. I mean that looks quite nice. And I always like advancing this h pawn. I have to say, this can very often be a nice source of counterplay. So there's a little hope. But the problem is, once my opponent starts getting this kind of bind, it's difficult, and I don't like my position now. So, for example, if I took... Well, if bishop takes, I guess I'm probably okay after this. But if knight takes, then it just seems too easy for white to play this position. Once you have this kind of undisputed control over d5, then let's say you play c3. Perhaps you double on the d file. I mean, it's terribly easy to play this position.
Yeah, I used to play Sicilian Najdorf, but I got fed up with knights on d5. To be honest, I prefer the French for keeping control of d5.
I used to play the Sicilian Najdorf as well, and I got beaten once too often, where my opponents got some big bind.
Yeah.
But okay, then I grew up and started playing the Najdorf. Okay, but I played knight d7. Now, that keeps a little bit more tension in the position, because it still means that I can maybe exchange that one off and then perhaps come back to d5 to contest. So although this looks impressive, that's what I was trying to do. But I'm definitely worse here. And now I've even got problems with my queen, because suddenly he's threatening b4. And obviously, whoops, when the queen goes back to c8, then there's knight c7. I mean, this is pretty ugly. It's gone badly wrong. Actually,
I have this theme on a few of the videos on the channel about Toy Story, where the dynamic, aggressive player tries to make counter strategic play from the opponent. So dynamism versus like static play, and this is like an example, isn't it, of white's just playing on the structure, the d5, and you're trying to generate counterplay from somewhere,
and not doing very well at the moment. No, I mean, my position stinks, Let's be clear about this. I've gone wrong in the opening. Things aren't good. Here, my opponent should have taken and hit the A file.
But one source of your counterplay is logical. He did a sort of positional sack, giving up his dark square bishop, and your bishop can come with vengeance, your dark square bishop. At some point on h6, maybe.
Well, I would love to think that, but in this position, I mean, this is horrible. I think here you can see my queen is in desperate trouble. he just needs to move his bishop, and then suddenly I'm reduced to making miserable moves like that. So, here I might just have to play bishop takes knight, and to give my queen some freedom. But I mean, this is a dream to play for white, an absolute dream. I've had this kind of position a million times as white, and it just stinks. So that's how my opponent could have got a big advantage.
Not against Karpov though. You haven't played Karpov like this.
Or have you played? No, I've never. I've played Karpov in a clock symbol many years ago. I've never played Karpov in a serious game.
I've seen him strangle like John Nunn in the Sicilian. This is a classic game.
Yeah, there is classic games, but I mean, God, I've had this kind of position with white a million times as well. Very, very good fun to play, and you often get this kind of position from the Spanish actually with white. One of my favourite openings. Okay, listen, he played a5. I think what he was trying to do was trying to kill all counterplay.
Yes.
Which, okay, it's not a bad idea. Maybe he wants to play c4 and create some nice passed pawn, and he's also taking away the b6 square. I understand, but actually, he forgot that I still have counterplay here. After bishop h6, things actually, amazingly, swing back in my favour. I don't know about in my favour, but I'm in with a shout now. I think he was basically too optimistic. He thought, I think he wanted to basically kill me without any counterplay whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because it looks as though I'm completely bottled up on the queen side. But actually, after this, I have some hope.
But he needs an exploitable target, doesn't he? And d6 is not as easy to get to, is it?
Well, as I said, I think he was hoping to get in c4.
But, b5, to emphasise b5.
But it's not so clear, because then I get counterplay against b4.
Yeah.
Basically, I think I'm all right now. Let's have a look at what happened. So rook d3, and now this move probably surprised him. I gave up my light squared bishop, but here you see, because of this pin, then he can't recapture with the knight. This is the point. And actually, incredibly, I'm actually contesting d5 quite well now. And I'm also looking to get counterplay on the c file.
That really is unexpected, because I say a lot of times in my videos that if you don't want to give up your light square bishop sometimes because you're weakening your own light squares, but that is a sort of very surprise weapon that you're using in the previous game and now in this one. And surprisingly, the play is generated then. The counterplay is generated soon after.
Yeah. No, I mean, the point is that this knight controls d5, and suddenly the c file is cleared.
Yes.
And it's because of this bishop that's emerged on h6 that actually gives black pretty reasonable counterplay here.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good all of a sudden. Strange.
Good might be an exaggeration. good might be putting it too strongly. Do you know what I mean? I think I have counterplay. I'm not going to put it any more than that. And here he played bishop b3. Now I could play quite slowly here. I could perhaps play king g7. Let's get my king out of this diagonal. I don't like that. And here, well, I could even take here, but I could just do this. And this actually isn't so bad, because in a position like this, although of course he has nice control over this diagonal, well, I've got, my bishop is quite good, and I'm holding this pawn. I think this may be okay for me. Alternatively, I could also perhaps just take here and play the rook to the c file. This is possible. Okay, so he comes back again. I play here, and alright, he has a little bit of pressure, but I can defend this very, very. Oops, excuse me. I didn't. That was a mouse slip. So you can see I've defended this point satisfactorily, and at some point, I can perhaps come down here. I'm just not quite sure where he goes next. I think the position is actually equal.
Yeah.
So I could have played like that, but actually I saw something that was quite dynamic, and I'm very proud of this move actually. I'm just going to promote that. There we are. So this is the position in the game, and as I said, I could have maybe played King G7 or taken on E3, but I'm really, really proud of this next move, which is the reason I wanted to show this game. Not for my brilliant opening play, because it wasn't brilliant, but I really like my next move. Okay, shall I reveal all? Black to play and do something dynamic.
Yes, can the YouTubers guess if we give them just a few more seconds? Or,
sure.
So
that gives me a chance to have a slurp of tea.
10 seconds, I'll have coffee as well. Coffee beats tea. Yeah, okay.
Coffee versus tea. Which is better? There's only one way to find out. Okay, here I played D5. This is the classic Najdorf break. If you can play D5 successfully, then it means you've broken down white's centre and you can get your kingside pawn majority, something I'm always hammering on about, into play. Now, here of course it's actually not an exchange, it's a sacrifice. But let's see what happens when white takes it. Now you could play bishop takes here, but my opponent played pawn takes. Now this is what I was looking for. If he's allowed to advance that pawn, then I haven't achieved much. But watch what happens. First of all, e4. Now, I've brought my knight to a very nice square. You can see the queen and knight both looking down at the f2 square. And well, we've seen this a million times, this kind of knight f2. So that's already a little bit worrying. And there's still this pin here. So I think my opponent's next move was completely understandable. He got out of the pin and covered the f2 square, played rook f1. And I think he just thought he was a pawn up here. But my next move I really like, and I think it was obviously very surprising for him. I just played knight d6. He was obviously looking for some devastating follow-up. But I just played knight d6, and after this, I think I'm better. I'm a clear pawn down, but I think I have the better position. Why? Because I've securely blockaded that pawn. Now, in blockading that pawn, that stymies his rook.
Yes.
It stymies his bishop.
Yeah.
And it even limits the knight on e3. So with that one move, that one blockader, basically I'm killing 3 white pieces.
Yeah,
and now the knight also protects my weak square on f7. It also has left the e file open. So suddenly my heavy pieces, in combination with the queen and bishop, are going to invade white's position. Sorry, I've put a lot of paint on the board there. But I think this is the key thing, that pawn basically blocks out his pieces. I was really proud of that move, and it's clearly he'd overlooked that.
Actually, okay, I've been recently in my own games thinking about piece quality concepts, about temporary piece quality and stuff, and so really the quality of your rooks can gain a lot of quality on the e file. The bishop's high quality and the queen. So you've made it also, as well as suppressing the quality of his pieces, the positional sack is really changing quality of many pieces at the same time.
Absolutely. I was really proud of that move.
That's great.
There you go. I'm patting myself on the back. Alright, so let's see what happened in the game. Let's see how this works out in practice. So he moved his queen out of the e-file where black's rooks are about to play. So the rook comes to e8 and the knight. Well, you can see the knight is amazingly... Ooh. It's in the middle of the board, and yet it actually has very few options. In fact, the only option is to come back to e1. But this is a chronic problem, of course, the bishop on b3. So let's see. Well, now, again, I just played very simply. I just doubled on the e-file. Now, he is struggling to find a square for his knight, so understandably he wants to improve the position of the knight. And something else about the Najdorf, you'll often find when you play the Najdorf that because you have a majority of pawns on the king side, I've got 3 pawns in front of my king.
Yeah.
White only has 2 pawns in front of his king. So although it's reasonably safe, actually it means it's much weaker.
Yeah, the
king is potentially in trouble, and this very often comes to pass in the Najdorf. Okay, time to invade. Rook e2. Now you can see this is move 36. Time control was at move 40. We were both slamming the pieces down very quickly. We were both very short of time at this point. So these next moves came in a bit of a flurry. He played knight f4. And I just came back again. Okay, my rook is attacked, I came back. And here he should probably just come back, but there's no doubt that he's worse in this position. And actually, I'm not sure I need to rush this. I think maybe my best move is simply to play king g7 and just to build very slowly, because I don't see what he's doing. And then,
queen f6 though, naughty check.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm very sorry. That's a time pressure move. Yeah, excuse me. Queen f6, not good. Okay, so let me think of another just slow building up move. Now I want to keep my knight on d6. Well, I might just play. Let me see. What might be a nice move just to keep things rolling? I wonder about that move. Just h4. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. But I'm just saying to White, okay, it's your move. How can you actually improve your position? I've just spotted something as well. I could just take a pawn off.
Yeah.
That's a lot simpler. It shows it's a long time since I looked at this game. I've even forgotten what I was trying to do. Well, that's really simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once that goes, then that one's weak as well. But I think the important thing is for Black just to keep control.
Yeah.
Just to come back again.
Your piece quality is much. You've won the piece quality war, haven't you? Basically, you're
absolutely
much better quality pieces from before.
Okay, but after rook e4, my opponent played knight takes h5.
Ooh.
Now this is time pressure, but he'd calculated so far, but not far enough. I took it. His idea was queen g3. Well, not a bad idea at all. But after this move, I'm afraid he overlooked my killer move.
Yeah, I think I spot it. Can the YouTube... guys on YouTube, boys and girls on YouTube, if we give you 10 seconds, can you spot Black's next move? I think I've spotted it. 10 seconds starting from now. Okay,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can't wait any longer. Queen f2
oh dear.
is the killer. And the back rank, I'm afraid. That is the end of that. Well, this was actually, Queen f2 was move 40.
Yeah.
And so we'd both reach the time control. We could both sit back and see what the hell was going on. And, well, here he resigned, because if this move...
Oh, yeah, there's another naughty move.
Then I'm afraid... Well, there are 2 ways to win. That's the kind of prosaic way to win.
Right.
But, of course, let's do it with forcing moves.
Yes.
And there we are. The Najdorf triumphs once again. There we are. So, okay, again, my opening was maybe not the most accurate, but I really, really like that move for its dynamic quality.
Yeah.
And just a few moves again, and again that move. Sorry, there's a lot of... Can we get rid of that paint? Very easy. Too much paint on the board.
This is reminding me... My good friend Paul Georgiou, he plays like the stone wall Dutch, and he regards the c8 bishop as a hero sometimes because it wriggles out. Now here, you can regard d5 as almost the Achilles heel of the Najdorf, but here actually it's a liberation point.
Absolutely.
So in both openings, what people might say on the surface, you wouldn't play the Dutch stone wall because of the bishop, you wouldn't play Najdorf because of d5, those points are actually double-edged.
Yeah, the pawn on d6. If we go right back to this move, I've just played the classic Najdorf move e5, which gives you this typical Najdorf pawn structure. Yes, this is the drawback, that you weaken this square d5, but that d5 move is often so liberating because there's a lot of pent-up energy that lies behind that pawn on d6, which is why I like this opening very much. So it's double-edged. You have to be prepared for dynamic play, but there we go. I don't know if we've got time for another game, or if we want to wrap things up, or should we have one more game?
Yeah, absolutely. These are really fascinating. This is like making Toy Story work. This is definitely a theme I've portrayed recently, because I really like. If you look at Kasparov games, he's always getting a major initiative, but sometimes if you try it in your own game, sometimes it doesn't work out. You need to be, I think, good at combinations and generating counterplay and seizing that moment, that small window of opportunity sometimes. Otherwise, if you miss that, you could get strategically done over with no counterplay.
It's true, but I think what you have to remember about the Najdorf is people think it's all about tactics, but actually, I always feel that it's a very positional, it's a very strategic opening, and that you have strategic pluses. Now, I've mentioned those strategic pluses already. Your kingside pawn majority, for example, and your central pawn majority, which can really hold you in very good stead in the endgame. Let me show you another game. So another Najdorf. This time, this was played in the German Bundesliga. A few years ago, I played for many years in the German league there, and I played against Alexander Khalifman, Russian grandmaster, and at that time he was actually the FIDE world champion, so I was very proud to play against a world champion. So he played bishop e2, of course, one of the main lines. Again I played my Najdorf move. You can play e6 and other moves, but I like my Najdorf pawn structure. And bishop e7. And I put my bishop on e6. Well, I always like putting my bishop on e6. Of course, it can come to b7, but it's so chunky on e6 because it fills in the gaps. It fills in these squares, and that's what I like about it there. Now, he played knight d5. You can, of course, castle, but knight d5 is an interesting idea. And notice he has not castled yet. And this was, at that time, this was quite a trendy way for white to play. The idea is that he's looking perhaps to castle queenside. I took. Now I'd prepared something for this game. I just had an inkling that he might play this. This was at that time, it was a very current line, so I prepared a little something. I played h5. Now you see, if I castle immediately in this position, then before he even goes queenside, he can actually play g4. You can also castle queenside in this position. But what I wanted to do was just lock down on his g4 straight away. And I like this move, actually. Although, it can be a little bit risky when you castle kingside, but it slows white down just for a little bit. He played h3. And, well, I'm not going to castle straight away because then g4 and then h5 does look ridiculous. But I played h4. And he played g4. I took. There are pros and cons to that move. Of course, one advantage is that he's opening lines. But in a very strategic sense, if we didn't have queens on the board, then I'd be quite happy because I have more centre pawns than my opponent. But sadly, I have to survive the middle game first.
Yes.
So it's a very double-edged position. I still didn't want to castle. I wanted to see what was going on first. Because my king is actually, at the moment, it's quite secure in the middle of the board, so I don't need to rush. I wanted to get on with my counterplay first. Knight b6. Now his next move rather surprised me, I must admit. I was I wasn't exactly sure what he was going to play, but he just hacked that knight off, so eliminating my immediate queenside counterplay, securing the pawn on d5. But he has given up, obviously, dark square control, but his idea is just to attack on the light squares.
Yes.
So now I'm going to get nowhere with just my queen and rook, so I need to get my king to safety and to connect my rooks. Okay, but now he advances on the king side. So it's a very double-edged position. Now I desperately need queenside counterplay. So I played a5. Let me just have a quick slurp of tea before I go on.
Yeah, it seems a lot of your opponents, they're often giving up their dark square bishop for a knight to try and get light square pressure, but that sometimes rebounds on them, on the dark squares later.
It's just a very double-edged position, because you can see that he has excellent control over the light squares here, and these opposite colour bishops can give both sides attacking potential, but he has, because you can't exchange off the light square bishop, for example, and likewise the dark square bishop. So we have a very tense situation here where both sides are attacking. Now I'm just about in time to get this knight round, and getting rid of that knight obviously leaves the way a bit clearer to attack on the queen side. But I need to generate some play very, very quickly.
Yes.
Because if he gets in g6 and can get in on these light squares, then things are really desperate. So this is close, Now I've weakened some light dark squares. That gives me some potential, but I have to keep the initiative. I have to keep attacking, otherwise I'm in trouble. So okay, that gives me just one extra move. So he moves his bishop. Now a4. So I've managed to chip open some lines, but okay, it's kind of touch and go. But also this rook has some influence over the fourth rank, and maybe I can come to d4. Okay, he checked and came back here. I think he wanted to stop my rook swinging over. Okay, I couldn't find anything better than to come back. I took. Now he recaptured this way. I'll get to the critical moment. Now, of course, we're entering the time pressure phase. It's rook f1. And we got queen d4. Okay, and now h5. Okay, so black to play. What did I do here? Maybe we should give our viewers a little time to think this one through.
Okay, so how does Daniel King save his king here?
So there's a threat of queen f5. So I can't play bishop takes pawn because of mate on h7. But I've still got a way to save myself.
Okay.
Okay, I found f5. So my pawns are stomping forward, and now after bishop takes, I played bishop takes g5. Now I had to calculate this one out, but basically my rook has gone, but here I've actually got a perpetual check. And after this move we simply agree to draw, because, well, I just keep on checking, and if the king tries to escape here, then I never let it out, and it's just going to be a draw. Draw by perpetual check.
Excellent.
So there we go. I managed to save my bacon, but it was close. I mean, that was a very tense game indeed, because I didn't know whether my counterplay was going to actually be sufficient. But okay, everything worked out in the end. I managed to scrape a draw. But yeah, I was quite pleased with that game actually. I mean, obviously Khalifman, very strong grandmaster.
Yeah.
And pleasing to play.
FIDE world champion at the time of the game.
Yeah, he was. That was in the year in 1999. He'd just won the he won the FIDE title of just about a couple of months before then. So there we go. Those are my some of my favourite Najdorf games.
Excellent.
I love the opening. I really do, because I love that kind of dynamic counterplay that you get.
Yeah, it's really a great demonstration of many aspects of the Najdorf. Excellent. Okay, thanks very much. I think you're a brilliant commentator, one of the best in chess history, to be honest.
True, that's very kind.
You, Maurice Hashley, and some others, my favourite commentators of all time.
That's very kind. Thank you. I shall keep doing my commentary on playchess.com. I do live commentaries, and I'm still doing a monthly show on the Power Play show, I call it, on playchess.com. So if you want to join me there, please do. And Trifon, thanks very much for inviting me on your channel. Okay, I hope my YouTube viewers are all going to favourite this video and like it, because it's not every day we have Daniel King with us. So thanks very much. Hope you got something from it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.